Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be here, to be in the House of Democracy here in Romania, and I know now that this is the room of human rights, so I think it's even, as you said at the beginning, more appropriate. Thank you very much, Mr. Florea, for welcoming us in here, and my special thanks also for the organizers. That I think this is a very important conference. It's really a pleasure to come here to address you with some thoughts really to such an important audience, but also in an important moment for the market here in Romania. And it is a particular pleasure, I think, to be able to talk to you about consumer protection, because this has been one of the strategic priorities of EIOPA since that we have been built up in 2011. Consumer protection, as we know it today, is a recent phenomenon. Before the 1960s, legal consumer rights were practically non-existent. In 1972, consumer rights were first mentioned in official EU papers. From that moment on, consumer protection accelerated, especially in the financial area. In the new European Consumer Agenda published recently by the European Commission, the financial area is one of the key sectors. In today's society, consumer satisfaction is taken as a best guarantee for any business's continuity. The rule number one in the financial sector business should be the consumer should be at the heart of the provider's business, not the other way around. That's a crucial prerequisite for being trusted by consumers. And trust is the lubricant of society and a major determinant of economic success. Trust affects how the legal system works, which then affects the economy due to its overall effect on transaction costs. This is a key issue for modern economies. We all know that the recent financial crisis created a huge lack of trust in the financial sector. And the question that we should all pose to us is how to restore trust and confidence. And this is a responsibility for all of us. But first and foremost, it's a responsibility of the business itself. By doing business in a decent and honest way, having good governance arrangements, offering transparent products, and having a company culture that is built on integrity. Of course, regulation and supervision also plays an important role in ensuring trust and confidence by consumers. Strong regulation and supervision adds credibility to the market and can be, in fact, a catalyst for a healthy market development. Let me now turn to EIOPA's work on consumer protection. As I said at the beginning, this area has been one of our main priorities. And let me tell you a little bit what we think about consumer protection. I think mainly consumer protection has two main dimensions. Firstly, it is about ensuring that undertakings are soundly managed and have a robust solvency position in order to fulfill on an ongoing basis all the commitments made to their customers. This is the first element of consumer protection in any market. Secondly, it is about making sure that customers have access to the relevant information on the conditions, the costs, and the risks of the products, that they are treated fairly, and that they get value for money. The first objective is, as you know, at the center of the Solvency II project. And I believe it will be a major development from a policyholder protection perspective. On the second objective, our agenda is focused on ensuring a paradigm shift in the direction of transparency towards consumers and on reinforcing fairness in selling practices. We surely need further certainty on the EU regulatory framework in this area. Projects like the IMD2, PRIPS, they need to be finalized in order to create a new paradigm for transparency and selling practices in the insurance market on the EU level. But these two main dimensions on consumer protection are also interrelated. Going forward, with Solvency II, for example, conduct and consumer risks need to be fully taken into account into the overall governance system of insurers. Product governance, product suitability, and appropriate selling practices need to be on the top of the agenda of the boards of insurance companies. Board members need to make sure that product characteristics are suitable for the target markets, that distribution channels are appropriate for that market segment, and that full transparency on costs is provided to consumers. The insurance market throughout the EU needs to learn the lessons from the mis-selling cases that occurred in the past in various different countries, and pay enough attention to the huge reputational and financial consequences stemming from some unacceptable misconduct behavior by some financial institutions. We are living in a period of rapid transformation on the consumer side. Consumers are more demanding, more aware of their rights, and this is good. We all are more demanding and more aware of our rights, and this is good. We need to take this positively. The web generation, the new generation, demands greater transparency, comparability, flexibility. Consumers demand more integrity and dare not trust so easily. The perception of poor quality service is rapidly transmitted and exposed through social media networks. This is a complete new reality. And financial institutions need to provide an adequate answer to this change. They need to develop simpler and more understandable products. They need to devote further attention to the fairness of contractual conditions, and they definitely need to review some charges and commissions, ensuring that they are not disproportionate. This needs to be seen, as I said, in a positive way by insurance companies and intermediaries. Simpler products will reduce cost structures, will provide more competitive pricing, and will reduce the potential for mis-selling. And furthermore, by improving selling practices and avoiding conflicts of interest, insurers and intermediaries will serve better their customers. And at the end, they will be rewarded by that, by having longer links and longer connections with clients. That's the best that any company in any industry needs. All in all, as I used to say, financial service providers should go beyond doing what's legal and should start to do what is legitimate. And I know that the concept of what is legitimate or fair in the relationship between insurers, intermediaries, and customers is evolving. What was fair some years ago is not seen anymore like that. This calls for a critical look from the insurance companies and intermediaries at the current practices and products in order to ascertain what needs to be adjusted. And let me be frank on this. This needs to be a proactive approach. This proactive, critical attitude would certainly prevent future mis-selling cases, would help to develop better new products, and overall will reinforce the confidence of consumers. And this is true all over Europe, and this is also true here in Romania. Let me tell you a little bit about consumer trends and what we're doing as EIOPA. One of our key tasks is to collect, analyze, and report on consumer trends. The aim is to identify vulnerabilities in the relevant markets which could provide the basis for target policy proposals or other supervisory actions. In our recent report on consumer trends issued in December, we identified issues like the lack of or the misleading disclosure of information, poor advice given to consumers, potentially leading to mis-selling of various insurance products, in particular, life products such as unit-linked. We have also seen the sale of complex products to retail investors. And we also seen some lack of governance rules on the development of these products. Finally, another element that we have seen is that unfortunately, consumers are focusing more on the price than on the protection provided by the products, which is definitely not also a good trend. Going forward, it is clear to me that data collection on consumer trends needs to be improved, both at a European and national levels. Furthermore, at EIOPA we are exploring the use of social media monitoring tools for our consumer trends, and we will need definitely to further involve consumer representatives in order to better reflect their major concerns. And I would say that has an important role to play from our stakeholder groups, both in insurance and pensions in this area. EIOPA analyzes the trends and the areas highlighted and, where appropriate, develops target policy and supervisory proposals to enhance consumer protection in the EU. And we have different tools at our disposal. Let me just mention you 3 examples. Firstly, on complaints handling. EIOPA identified a lack of EU rules on complaints handling by insurance companies and insurance intermediaries, leading to a diverse number of national approaches and a potential unlevel playing field. We decided to issue guidelines, which is one of the strongest tools that we have at our disposal, to seek to promote a more convergent approach. EIOPA's guidelines on complaints handling by insurers have been implemented by national supervisory authorities, and I'm happy to say that also in Romania that was the case. Following our guidelines, many insurers in the EU are updating their complaint management systems. This will help consumers to receive better services and to resolve problems in a quicker and more efficient way. At the end of last year, we issued similar guidelines relating to complaints handling by insurance intermediaries. Second example, payment protection insurance. We have identified significant consumer detriment in the market, including mis-selling practices, market imperfections, and disproportionate levels of commissions. And we issued an opinion in which we provide a framework for supervisory analysis of this issue. We recommend the national competent authorities to use it and to report back to us. Based on the information received from the national authorities, EIOPA is now deciding if and what kind of further action is needed at the EU level. A third example, comparison websites. When we were identifying consumer trends, definitely comparison websites was an emerging trend in many, many countries. And while comparison websites help to enhance the transparency and the comparability of information available to consumers, there are a number of elements that need to be carefully dealt in order to avoid detriment to consumers at the end of the day. As a first initiative in this area, we recently published a report outlining good practices for websites that compare insurance products. The report gives guidance on topics like the information about the comparison site itself, the market coverage of the site, how the site deals with conflicts of interest, the criteria used to make the ranking of providers and products, and the presentation and the frequency of updating information. Our report aims to promote transparency, simplicity, and fairness for consumers, and we definitely expect that these good practices will be adopted by the relevant market players and assessed by national competent authorities. Ladies and gentlemen, the development of a single rule book of harmonized regulation in the EU, it's a huge step forward for the single market. But let's be honest, good regulation is just a first step. It needs to be enforced. And the real challenge is to ensure that regulation is implemented in a consistent way throughout the EU. This requires effective and convergent supervision in all member states in order to ensure strong supervision throughout Europe, to prevent regulatory arbitrage, and to guarantee a level playing field in the internal market. This is fundamental. And that's the reason why EIOPA puts a strong emphasis on the promotion of supervisory convergence and establishment of a common supervisory culture. This is one of the fundamental elements going forward for EIOPA. Strong and credible supervision is needed across the EU. Preventive supervision and timely enforcement contributes to healthy market competition and is critical to avoid consumer detriment. All member states in the EU, and I repeat, all member states in the EU, shall ensure that supervisory authorities are provided with the necessary means and have the relevant expertise, capacity, and mandate to achieve the main objective of supervision, namely the protection of policyholders and beneficiaries. Going forward, EIOPA will perform an important role, as stated in its regulation, by reviewing the convergence of supervisory practices, but also the capacity of supervisors to achieve high-quality supervisory outcomes, as well as their independence. In this context, I want to remind what is mentioned in international standards of supervisory standards. It is fundamental that the supervisor, in the exercise of its functions and powers, is operationally independent, accountable, and transparent, and that the supervisor and his staff should be free from undue political, governmental, and industry interference in the performance of supervisory responsibilities. This is key for the development of supervision in Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that the insurance industry plays an important role in protecting citizens in their daily life and in helping businesses to develop and expand. A credible and stable insurance industry is one of the preconditions for a functioning economy. In order to perform this role and to develop sustainable businesses, the insurance industry needs to put consumer protection at the center of its purpose. The regulatory changes introduced by regimes like Solvency II are a tremendous opportunity for a positive change. A change from the market participants because they need to enhance the understanding and management of risks. They need to better price these risks, and they need to maintain capital levels which are commensurate with those risks and to be much more transparent. And it is up to the insurance companies to realize that Solvency II is much more than a capital regime, and it's definitely not a compliance exercise. Solvency II is about making sure that the risk culture is embedded in the day-to-day operations of the undertakings. But it's also a change for supervisory authorities that need to implement a risk-based supervisory process, ensuring that all market participants follow sound governance and risk management practices, maintain adequate technical provisions and own funds, and disclose proper information to the public. This change is fundamental to reinforce financial stability all over the EU and to increase consumer protection for all European citizens. It is a challenging journey for everybody, but it needs to be done. EIOPA will be attentive, and it will use its powers to make sure that we have an happy ending for the benefit of the EU citizens and businesses. The future is for us to build.